అభివృద్ధి ఏ రకంగా అమలవుతున్నాయనేది సభ యొక్క ముఖ్య ఉద్దేశం. సో దీని గురించి ఓపెన్ మైండ్స్ అధ్యక్షులు శ్రీ రాజశేఖర రెడ్డి గారు వివరిస్తారు.
ఈ సెమినార్ను ఇనాగురేట్ చేయవలసిందిగా ఆచార్య నాగార్జున యూనివర్సిటీ వైస్ ఛాన్సలర్ రాజశేఖర్ గారిని కోరుతూ, అదే సందర్భంగా వారిని సభికులను ఉద్దేశించి వారి మెసేజ్ కూడా ఇవ్వవలసిందిగా విజ్ఞప్తి చేస్తున్నాం. I request the Vice Chancellor to inaugurate and make it open the seminar.
To the President of this seminar on welfare and development in Andhra Pradesh, Sri Dr. N. Rajshekar Reddy Garu, and to the distinguished Vice Chancellors, the Chief Guest, Professor J.B.G. Tilak, and to another distinguished Vice Chancellor, Sri Professor N. Venkatrao Garu, Vice Chancellor for Dr. B.R. Ambedkar University, Srikakulam, and to the senior journalist, Sri K.B.G. Tilak Garu, and to the registrar of our university, and to Professor Srinivas Reddy, and to all the wonderful and amazing students of Acharya Nagarjuna University, and also to the distinguished personalities who are here to participate in this intellectual discussions or intellectual debates about the welfare and development in Andhra Pradesh. I convey my best wishes on behalf of Acharya Nagarjuna University. I really consider this an opportunity given to me to stand before you as the Vice Chancellor to declare open this seminar. And I am also asked to speak something about welfare and development as the inaugural address, as part of the inaugural address. I thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity, and so I also thank Open Minds intellectual group for coming forward in organizing these kinds of debates, intellectual debates, which need to be discussed, especially at the universities, in the presence of the academicians, in the presence of the students, scholars, and academicians. The discussion has to take place on welfare and development in Andhra Pradesh, and we need to completely make it as an academic exercise while trying to understand what exactly is the welfare, what exactly is the development, and how exactly are the welfare and development are going on effectively in Andhra Pradesh by the present government. One can recall a very important novel written by Benjamin Disraeli in the year 1840. I think most of the students might have heard the name of Benjamin Disraeli. He wrote a novel with the title Sibyl or the Two Nations. Sibyl is the name of the character. If you want to consider that book as a novel, you can consider Sybil as the central character of the novel. There is another title for the book, The Two Nations. And in this book, Benjamin Disraeli makes a very popular statement, a very popular proposition. He says, power has only one duty: to secure the social welfare of the people. I believe that is the ultimate statement which reigns even today, which inspires many administrators, which inspires many rulers. Power has no other objective than to seek the welfare of the people in the society or in the nation. I think this novel was exactly published in the year when Frederick Engels wrote the book The Conditions of the Working Classes in England. This book was written keeping in view the conditions, the social conditions, the appalling social conditions of the working classes in England, especially during the 19th century, when England was considered to be the colonial power or the center of the universe, when England was trying to loot all the resources across the world and trying to invest the richness of the other countries into its own nation, the conditions of the working classes were so appalling and so disgusting. And he offered a critique of the working classes, which became a very, very influential book that has decided the dictum of ruling the nations across the world. I think that is how I can try to trace the very academic definition of the welfare state. And many people have given their own definitions of welfare state. So what is a welfare state? I think Article 38 of the Constitution says that the state shall strive to promote the welfare of the people by securing and protecting as effectively as it may a social order shall pervade in all the institutions of national life. I think that's Article 38, which speaks about the dire necessity of making welfare of the people as the prime governance, as the prime principle of the governance of any state. And Article 41 of the Constitution says, the state shall, within the limits of economic capacity and development, make effective provisions for securing the right to work, to education, and to public assistance in cases of unemployment, old age, sickness, and disablement. I think Part 4 of the Indian Constitution is about directive principles of the state. And directive principles of the state policy are not binding on the part of any government. Very few governments consider the directive principles of the state as very, very serious dictums, as very, very serious principles to be subscribed. I think one of the states among the states of India which subscribes completely to the definition of the welfare that I gave you from the statement of Disraeli, and also to the definition of welfare from the Article 38 and 41 of the Constitution, is only Andhra Pradesh. One of the states which subscribes to these two articles, to the implementation of these two articles, is only Andhra Pradesh. What exactly is the concept of welfare? Can India be considered as a welfare state? And what are the countries that are considered to be a completely welfare nations? If you examine the list of the Western countries across the world, political analysts and social analysts say that France is the complete welfare state. France tops the list of the nations in the world. Next comes the USA. Because 30% of its GDP is completely spent on welfare, programs of the welfare programs of the people. So after France and after USA, Sweden is considered to be the complete welfare state. It looks after the necessities and needs of all its citizens. The total concept of welfare is realized completely to the best of its ability in terms of physical, mental, moral, and emotional well being of an individual only in Sweden. Only in Sweden. Now, if you can recall, if you can try to relate these, definitions of welfare state from the vantage point of a few Western nations trying to implement the principles of welfare state, we will have to understand how exactly and where exactly India need to be placed. How can we call India as a complete welfare state only when few states are trying to implement the directive principles of the Constitution, and among those few states of India, I think Andhra Pradesh stands to be the first and foremost state, especially during the present regime of our Honorable Chief Minister. I think the sociological and political, cultural, especially if you wanted to say etymological drawings of welfare state can be extracted from ancient India also, from the rulers of ancient India also. Okay. It was Emperor Ashoka of India, who brought forward his idea of welfare state in the 3rd century BC itself. He envisioned the concept of welfare in the light of dharma, in the light of religious path. And he understood that it is not just a collection of phrases, it is not just a verbatim. I'm just talking about 3rd century BC, when the entire world didn't even know what exactly was the idea of welfare state. India, which can boast of a glorious past, and India, which can boast of a secular past, India, which can talk about the encompassing or encircling of all the sections of the society during the mighty Mauryan ruling, during the mighty Mauryan Empire, slowly lost its place. It slowly lost its place. Ashoka considered it as a matter of state policy. He declared that all men are my children. All the human beings. I think men means in those days, that was the only word used. We can translate that as all human beings are my children. And whatever exertion I make, I strive only to discharge debt that I owe to all living creatures. Whatever execution that I am trying to make, I am trying to do it as part of my responsibility, as part of my debt to all the living creatures. And this was considered to be an ideal kingship. Those days, during the times of mighty Mauryan Emperor Ashoka, what was the ideal kingship? What was the ideal statesmanship? What was the ideal rulership? When people were completely in blind belief that a king is the one who normally descends from the divinity, the divine theory, and no power on this earth can disobey him, can question him. Whatever is thought by the king has to be obeyed, whatever is executed by the king has to be obeyed. But India has the tradition of a king, especially Ashoka, which began with Ashoka, who thought on these lines. And he wanted to conquer, or Ashoka, as we all know, tried to conquer the whole world through love and faith. He sent missions to propagate Dharma, to make the people understand what exactly is Dharma and what exactly is, the definition of welfare state. And the missions were sent to Egypt, Greece, and Sri Lanka. Of course, the propagation was in the name of Buddhism that included the measures of people welfare and centers of treatment. I think students will be surprised that in 3rd century BC itself, during the mighty Mauryan emperor times itself, India had this glorious tradition of looking after the welfare of the common people. During the times of Ashoka, centers of treatment of men and beasts were founded outside and inside of the empire. Okay. The human beings and the animals were treated with compassion. The centers were established. And then shady groves, wells, orchards, and rest houses were laid out. Ashoka prohibited, as you all know, the useless sacrifices and certain forms of gatherings which led to waste, indiscipline, and superstition. To implement these policies, Ashoka recruited a new cadre of officers, almost on the lines of our present Chief Minister, who appointed volunteers for 50 houses to look after the welfare and to look after the needs of those people. The new cadre of officers called as Dharma Mahatmas. They were called as Dharma Mahatmas. And part of this group's duties was to see that people's various sects were treated fairly. What is the responsibility of the volunteers of the present government? To see that all the people were treated equally, to understand the dire necessities of all the people, and to see that they become eligible for the welfare schemes which are being implemented by the present government. I am just drawing an analogy from the ancient tradition, of India, where the interests of the people, the necessities of the people were the prime concerns of the government, Okay. I mean, this is what we see as far as Indian tradition, as far as Indian, rule during the time of Ashoka is concerned, as far as welfare state is concerned. And if you, briefly examine the history of China, the Emperor Wen, during 203 to 157 BCE of Han dynasty, he instituted a variety of measures with resemblances to modern welfare policies. These included pensions. Okay. Now people are, coming out with their own doubts. Why pensions for the old people? Why pensions for the downtrodden people? Why pensions for single, individuals that do not have any kind of support system? So the pensions were part and parcel of the welfare system of ancient India and of ancient China also. Okay. Pensions in the form of food and wine to all the people above 80 years of age, as well as monetary support in the form of loans or tax breaks to widows, orphans, and elderly without children to support them. Okay. So it's not something new which is not away from the ruling system, but as the present governments have completely forgotten the welfare measures and the welfare schemes to be implemented by the government, the implementation of the welfare schemes by the present government seem to be very, very surprising to us. But of course, they are really revelations, social revelations and surprising things in the light of the government's completely forgetting the welfare of the people. Okay. So, if you just take into consideration how, Rome implemented its welfare schemes, how in the Middle East, how in Arabian countries, South Arabian, modern Arabian countries, welfare schemes were implemented, you will not be surprised that these are part and parcel of the governing system, and every country has to concentrate only on the welfare measures, social welfare measures, completely giving back to its people whatever is collected from the people. The good amount of money, or 80% or 85% of the money, has to be given back to the people. Okay. So the model of governance that the present government has chosen, the model of governance that the present government has initiated, is a reflection or is a resonance of all the great traditions of the nations that once upon a time were considered to be the welfare states. Okay. What has happened in the evolution of the culture? What has happened right from 18th century down to the 21st century? From 18th century down to 21st century, at every stage people had to wage war. At every stage